My mom looked at me across the dinner table and said, "You'll never be as good as your sister." Everyone stopped eating. My dad nodded. My sister smirked. But I stood up and said something that made the whole room go dead silent. "I'm Maya, and I'm 28 years old. For as long as I can remember, I've been the invisible daughter, the backup child, the one who worked 2 jobs just to keep her head above water while my parents showered my sister Emma with praise, money, and opportunities I could only dream of. I spent my nights as a hospital nurse, saving lives in the ICU. My weekends tutoring kids just to pay off student loans that seemed to grow bigger every month. I never complained, never asked for help. I just watched from the sidelines as Emma got everything handed to her on a silver platter. If your family has ever made you feel invisible while lifting someone else up, subscribe right now and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single comment because I know exactly how that crushing feeling of being overlooked tears you apart inside. It all started 3 months ago, at what should have been just another family dinner. But this one was special. This one was all about celebrating Emma's big news. She'd landed a marketing job at some trendy startup, and my parents had turned it into a full production. The dining room smelled like roasted chicken and expensive wine. Mom had cooked Emma's favorite meal from scratch. There were flowers on the table, good china, and candles flickering like this was some kind of holiday. I walked in straight from a 12-hour shift at the hospital, still wearing my scrubs, exhaustion weighing down every step. "Maya, you're late," Mom said without looking up. Her attention was glued to Emma, who was telling some story about her new office space and the free kombucha in the break room. I sat down in the only empty chair, the one with the slightly wobbly leg that nobody else wanted. Emma was glowing, her hair perfectly styled, wearing a dress that probably cost more than I made in a week. Dad was hanging on her every word like she was announcing a cure for cancer. "And then my boss said I have real potential for the creative director position," Emma continued, waving her wine glass around. "He thinks I could be running campaigns within 6 months." "That's incredible, sweetheart," Dad beamed. "This company really knows talent when they see it." I tried to jump into the conversation. "Speaking of work, I got a commendation today for helping save a patient who came in with cardiac arrest. The doctor said my quick thinking made the difference between life and death." Mom barely glanced at me. "That's nice, honey." Then she immediately turned back to Emma. "Tell us more about the office culture. It sounds so dynamic." Dad leaned forward, completely ignoring what I'd just said. "Emma's really going places with this company. They have real growth potential, not like these dead-end healthcare jobs." That's when it happened. The moment that changed everything. Mom looked directly at me with this cold sneer I'd seen 1,000 times before. "Maya, you'll never be as good as your sister. Emma has ambition. She has drive. She's going somewhere in life." The words hit me like a physical blow, but what made it worse was watching Emma's reaction. She didn't defend me. She didn't look uncomfortable. She just smiled and took another sip of wine like Mom had just complimented the weather. As I sat there staring at the half-empty plate in front of me, something clicked. I'd been paying my parents' mortgage for 6 months. 6 months of $2,800 payments coming straight out of my bank account while they gave Emma a $5,000 congratulations check for getting a job that paid less than what I made in a month. But that dinner was just the beginning. The real betrayals were still coming. 2 weeks later, I was scrolling through Instagram during my lunch break when I saw them. Pictures of Emma, my parents, and Emma's boyfriend on a beach in Hawaii. Palm trees, crystal blue water, expensive resort drinks with little umbrellas. They looked like they were having the time of their lives. I stared at my phone screen in disbelief. Nobody had mentioned a family vacation. Nobody had even hinted at it. I called Mom immediately. "Oh, Maya," she said when I asked about the trip. "We didn't think you could get time off work. You're always so busy with your shifts." "You didn't ask," I said, my voice cracking. "You never even asked if I wanted to go." "Well, it was kind of a last-minute thing. Emma needed to decompress after starting her new job. You understand?" I hung up and stared at more photos. My family building sandcastles. My family at expensive restaurants. My family having deep conversations on sunset walks. Without me. Emma's text came 3 hours later. "Sorry, thought you knew about Hawaii. You're always working anyway, so we figured you wouldn't want to come. Hope you're not mad." I wasn't mad. I was devastated. But the public humiliation came next, and that almost broke me completely. Emma's 26th birthday party was held at the most expensive restaurant in town, the kind of place where appetizers cost more than my grocery bill for a week. My parents had rented out the entire back room and invited 50 people to celebrate their successful daughter. I showed up after another long shift, still smelling faintly of hospital disinfectant, wearing the nicest dress I owned that still looked cheap next to everyone else's designer outfits. Mom gave a speech that made my stomach turn. "We're so proud of our Emma," she announced, raising her wine glass high. "She's always shown such natural talent, such a bright future ahead of her. Some people are just born to succeed." The whole room clapped. Emma glowed under the attention like she was accepting an Academy Award. That's when Mrs. Chen, one of Mom's friends, turned to me. "And what do you do, Maya? I know Emma's in marketing, but I've lost track of your career." Before I could answer, Dad jumped in with a laugh that made my cheeks burn. "Oh, Maya's still figuring things out. She's working at the hospital, but Emma's the one with the real career. Emma's the one who's really making something of herself." I had just completed my nursing degree. I was working in the intensive care unit, literally holding people's lives in my hands every single day. I was making more money than Emma had ever seen in her life. But all Dad could see was his successful daughter who posted pretty pictures on social media for a startup that might not exist in 2 years. Mom raised her glass again. "We're just so proud of our successful daughter," she said, looking directly at Emma while I sat 3 feet away. The room went quiet for a moment, and I felt 50 pairs of eyes on me. Some people looked confused. Others looked embarrassed for me, but my parents just smiled and kept celebrating Emma like I was invisible. That night, I went home and cried until my eyes were swollen shut, but the worst betrayal was still coming. I discovered it by accident while helping Mom organize her bills. There, mixed in with utility statements and credit card payments, were documents that made my blood run cold. Emma's student loan statements, all marked paid in full. I grabbed the papers with shaking hands and started calculating. Emma had graduated with $45,000 in student debt. Every single payment had come from my parents' account, the same account I'd been depositing money into every month to help with the mortgage. I confronted Mom the next day. "You've been using my money to pay Emma's loans?" Mom didn't even look ashamed. "Emma needs to focus on her career growth. She can't be weighed down by debt when she's building her future. You have a stable job, you can handle your own responsibilities plus help the family. I've been working nights and weekends to pay off my own loans while you used my mortgage payments to clear Emma's debt." "Maya, don't be selfish. Family helps family. Emma's success benefits all of us." That's when I realized the truth. I hadn't been helping with a mortgage. I'd been funding Emma's entire lifestyle while drowning in my own debt. She graduated free and clear while I worked myself to exhaustion just to keep up with payments. But what they didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything. Every bank transfer, every payment, every receipt. I kept detailed records for tax purposes, never imagining I'd need them as evidence of financial abuse. While they were celebrating Emma's $45,000 salary, they had no idea I was making $89,000 a year. They had no idea I'd been accepted into a nurse practitioner program that would bump my income to 6 figures. I'd been keeping quiet about something that would change everything. My colleague Jennifer had been watching this whole situation unfold. She was the charge nurse on my floor, a woman in her 50s who didn't sugarcoat anything. One day during our break, she looked me straight in the eye and said what I needed to hear. "Maya, you're literally paying for your sister's life while they treat you like a failure. This isn't family support. This is financial abuse." Jennifer helped me calculate the exact numbers. Over 2 years, I'd given my parents $47,000. Not just for the mortgage like I thought, but for Emma's loans, her car payment, even her credit card bills when she had a tough month. That's when things got interesting. Mom started dropping hints about Emma's engagement. Her boyfriend had proposed, and they were planning a big wedding. A wedding that would need family contributions. "Maya can handle the catering costs," Mom said casually during a phone call. "She doesn't have other expenses like Emma does. Emma needs to save for her dress and the honeymoon." I hung up and started printing documents. Bank statements, payment records, loan calculations, everything I'd need to prove exactly how much I'd been supporting this family while they treated me like the unsuccessful daughter. Then I did something that terrified me. I stopped making the mortgage payment. My phone exploded within a week. Panicked calls from Mom, angry texts from Dad. Even Emma called, suddenly concerned about family finances for the first time in her life. "Maya, what's going on with the mortgage?" Mom demanded. "The bank called saying the payment is late." "I think we need to have a family meeting," I said calmly. "Let's sit down for dinner and discuss everyone's financial contributions." They agreed immediately, probably thinking they could guilt me back into line. The dinner was set for Saturday night. Mom cooked another elaborate meal, probably thinking food would soften me up. Dad opened a bottle of wine like we were celebrating something. Emma showed up with her engagement ring sparkling, ready to discuss wedding plans and my expected contribution. They had no idea what was coming. Dad started the lecture before we'd even finished eating. Maya, we need to talk about responsibility, family obligations. You can't just stop supporting us because you're having some kind of emotional crisis. This family depends on your contributions, Mom added. Emma's building her future, and we all need to sacrifice to help her succeed. Emma nodded along, completely clueless about where her lifestyle was actually coming from. Maya, I know you're stressed about money, but we're family. We help each other. That's when Mom gave me that same cold sneer, that same dismissive look that had haunted me for years, and she said the exact same words that had started this whole confrontation. You'll never be as good as your sister. I stood up slowly, my hands steady for the first time in months. I looked Mom directly in the eye and said the words that made the room go dead silent. Then ask her to pay your bills. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder thick with documents. I spread them across the dinner table like I was dealing cards, each page landing with a soft thud that seemed to echo in the silence. I've paid $47,000 to this family over the past 2 years, I said, my voice steady and clear. Emma's student loans, your mortgage, her car payment, even her credit card bills when she overspent on clothes and vacations. Emma's face went white. She picked up one of the bank statements with trembling hands, staring at payment after payment with her name in the memo line. Monthly mortgage payments, $2,800, I continued, pointing to each document. Emma's loan payments, $650 a month. Car payment contributions, $400 a month. Random emergency payments when Emma needed help, $8,200 total. Dad was frantically flipping through the papers, his confident expression crumbling as he realized every payment was documented, every lie exposed. Emma? I turned to my sister, who was still staring at the evidence in shock. You had no idea I was paying your loans, did you? She shook her head, tears starting to form in her eyes. Maya, I thought Mom and Dad were helping me. I didn't know the money was coming from you. Of course you didn't, I said, because they wanted you to think you were special, that you were successful, that you were better than me. I turned back to my parents, who were both trying to speak at once, scrambling to explain away 2 years of financial manipulation. You want to know the real difference between Emma and me? I asked, my voice getting stronger with every word. I've been supporting this entire family while Emma plays grown-up with a job that pays less than what I make in 2 weeks. The silence that followed was deafening. My nursing income is $89,000 a year, I continued. Emma's startup salary is $45,000. But you've spent 2 years telling everyone that she's the successful one, while I'm still figuring things out. Emma was crying openly now, the weight of the truth hitting her like a physical blow. She'd been living off my money while looking down on me. Her entire lifestyle, her debt-free graduation, her financial freedom to focus on her career, all of it had been built on my work, my sacrifice, my paychecks. Maya, we can explain, Dad started, but I held up my hand. No, I said firmly. You can't explain away 2 years of lies. You can't explain why you took my money to pay her bills while telling me I'd never be as good as her. You can't explain why you celebrated her success when it was funded by mine. I gathered up the documents and put them back in my folder. The mortgage payment stops now. Emma can be as good as she wants with her own money. I walked out that night and never went back to those family dinners. Within 2 weeks, I'd moved to another city and accepted a position as a nurse practitioner, making $120,000 a year. The hospital that hired me valued my experience, my dedication, and my skills. They treated me like the professional I'd always been, not like the failure my family had convinced themselves I was. My parents' house went into foreclosure within 6 months. Emma's relationship fell apart when the financial reality hit and she couldn't maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. She called me crying, begging for help, but I was done being their safety net. For the first time in my life, their silence didn't hurt me. It freed me. I finally understood that I never needed their approval. I needed my own respect. I needed to value myself the way I'd been hoping they would value me for years. I built a new life surrounded by colleagues who appreciated my contributions. People who saw my worth without needing proof or documentation or years of financial support. People who understood that success isn't about getting everything handed to you, it's about working for what you have and being proud of what you've accomplished. They lost me that day, and I never looked back. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is walking away from people who can't see your worth, no matter how much evidence you provide. If you've ever been the family member who gives everything while someone else gets all the credit, you're not alone. Drop a comment below and tell me your story. Where are you watching from? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own self-worth? Your experiences matter, and I read every single comment. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about finding strength when family dynamics go wrong. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop paying for other people's dreams and start investing in your own.